I didn't know who's in charge of the Lincoln Project's Twitter last night, but it was a beautiful thing. But before I even get to that, I do want to play one cut here. Can I have a flashback of one of my favorite members of the Lincoln Project, Steve Schmidt, telling us about accountability? This is cut 18.
The people around Trump who have participated in the shaping of the great American catastrophe over the last 4 years will be held to account.
I love accountability, especially when it's towards the members of the Lincoln Project. Ryan Girdusky, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me again.
So, Ryan, last time you were on, you really broke down what happened with John Weaver and the story behind that, all the DMs you received from people who were coming forward and saying that he was creepy and, there was sexual harassment involved. And then last night, something interesting happened. Can you explain to people what happened with the leaked DM?
So last night, earlier in the morning, the Associated Press came up with a story saying that the Lincoln Project members actually knew about John Weaver well before my story came out, well before they had ever made an announcement about anything, and then later, and they said, "Oh, that's a Trump hit piece from the Associated Press," which is a joke. Then later that night, the New Yorker came out with a fabulous story. Sorry, New York Magazine, not the New Yorker. New York Magazine came out with a fabulous story, which broke it down even more specific that Rick Wilson and Steve Schmidt were aware to some degree of his behavior, and that people were warned for months about what he was doing.
And this is a big deal, Ryan, because I just want to stop you there. This is a big deal because their whole thing was denying that they knew anything about this, and they were coming out.
They had never heard of him before. I mean, they've changed their story so many times right now. Your head could spin.
And they said, I didn't know, and I didn't even know him that well. That was my favorite one from George Conway. I don't really know if George knows him that well, but it was just kind of comical that all of these guys were coming out and all of a sudden saying.
Well, I mean, I will say this about George Conway, and I've done a lot of research. I think that he was involved with the Lincoln Project like I'm involved, like with, cleaning the dishes in my apartment. Like when my roommates do it, I'll let them do it instead. I don't think he was actually very involved with the Lincoln Project much at all. I think it was basically a name only. Other members very much were involved. And they said, he had a heart attack in August, he stepped away, we never heard from him basically again. That proved not to be true. He did come back with the idea of turning Texas blue back in September, October. By the way, they also said that they were aware of me working on the story as early as late July. And he was aware of it too, and he still continued to prey on young men, even though he knew I was working on this story. He really didn't think he would ever be caught. So this story comes up with the New York Magazine later that night, late Sunday night, and they put up a statement saying they're going to hire a third-party counsel to look into who knew what when, which is ironic because they also said in the statement, if you want to speak, you need to get out of your NDAs first, and we're basically not letting you out of your NDAs.
Yeah, can I read, Ryan? I'm gonna read that. Furthermore, any person who believes they are unable to talk about John Weaver publicly because they are bound by an NDA should contact the Lincoln Project for a release. And this was in the first paragraph. They said that there was a lot of inaccuracies and incorrect information.
Right. Well, the thing is that they then proceeded to. Hours later, after that statement, or an hour later after that statement came out, it's kind of a blur right now because I was doing Laura Ingram's show. But during that statement, they then posted screenshots of a former founding member of the Lincoln Project, Jennifer Horn from New Hampshire. They posted her screenshots that she had with a reporter over Twitter DMs. She says she never consented or gave them those screenshots. So I heard from that reporter, that they had ordered their staffers to start hacking into members' Twitters to see who the leakers were. Only thing is, that's breaking a federal to hack in it is not breaking federal crime. To post hacked information is a federal crime, and it was George Conway who up-tweeted the Lincoln Project and said, "You are breaking federal law right now. I highly suggest you delete that tweet." And they deleted it quickly afterwards.
But not before Rick Wilson retweeted it and said something like he retweeted. I don't have the exact tweet right here, but he basically made it clear that he was on board for this.
Yes. I mean, and then finally 6 members of the Lincoln Project anonymously wrote a letter saying we would like to all be released from our NDAs to speak freely about this. The actions of Steve Schmidt and Rick Wilson are making us very unnerved right now, and how they're going after Jennifer Horn. Jennifer Horn is, by the way, not innocent in this at all. She was being reached by victims as well. So she's not the most innocent person in the entire world. But she then said, I'm leaving because of the John Weaver story. Maybe she didn't know until after my story came out. I don't really know the timeline very well. I don't believe that she did know until my story came out. But afterwards, she knew about the story because she was being reached out to by victims. And she knew this was a much bigger deal than my story originally said it was. My story was originally like a handful of people. It's over 150 young men now who've come forward. So over a 5-year period, including at least one minor and possibly more will be coming out very soon. So she knew that something was happening right then and there. She knew that something was going on. So she very well could have not. They said, oh, it's not because of John Weaver. It's because she wants more money. I think her demands, and I get the numbers mixed up, so it's either she wanted a $40,000 bonus and $25,000 a month, or a $25,000 bonus and $40,000 a month, is about $500,000, let's say, that she wanted a year, which is far less than other members were making, and their companies were making. So that is a bold-faced claim that they're, listen, even in a grift, women can't get paid equal to men. I mean, it's absurd. So,
sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
No, but it's true. So, them going after Jennifer Horn, now they have publicly broken a law. And today it was reported by Yashar Ali, and another person confirmed this report to me, that the FBI is looking into John Weaver. And probably, if they're looking into John Weaver, they may be looking into the entire Lincoln Project.
I'm talking to Ryan Girdusky, who was a major player in exposing this story about John Weaver in the Lincoln Project. The part of it that I find amazing is how much money they were able to make, Ryan. I mean, some of these numbers are coming out. They made an astronomical amount of money, and then they gave a majority of that money, a huge portion of it, to themselves.
They made $87 million, and $50 million of which were brought back into their own companies. $50 million of $87 million.
Yes.
So more than half.
It's like the Jane Sanders of it all. Like, oh, you'll do the ad buying, and you'll get a certain percentage of the campaign money.
No. That doesn't include the ad buying.
Oh.
No, ad buying included. It's more. This was a grift. A lot of these people did it to make a lot of money. I forget exactly which one it was. Because I have you should see my desktop. It is literally overloaded right now. But the person who one of the Lincoln Project members, his company made I want to say $15,000 or $12,000 before the in 2018, and last year it made almost $25 million.
Now, Ryan, one thing I have 2 last points that I want to ask you about. One is that I understand what you're saying about certain people not knowing about it or, didn't know the extent of it. But don't you find it ironic that these people were like the poster boys for accusing people of guilt by association? Like, they loved the idea.
100%. 100%. That's what infuriated me so much that I did that initial tweet. I mean, I've been working on this for a month. I couldn't get anyone on the record. People were too afraid of the Lincoln Project. So finally, when they tweeted a thing saying we're going to keep track and dox people, basically, who would ever even remotely work for the Trump administration, I tweeted, okay, then let me start talking about the Lincoln Project founder who is offering jobs for sex for young men. And that's what started this whole thing, and I hoped it would bring out one person to go on record. I didn't think it would bring out 150 people to go on record.
Right.
His predation was so large, and his appetite for it was so outrageous that it was, it was insane.
I totally agree. Ryan, I have to ask you, and I'm sure you've seen this because, like you said, your desktop is covered. You're following all this on Twitter. But one thing I found so ironic was a tweet from Rick Wilson from 2019 where he was talking about Cliff Sims, who used to work for the Trump administration and wrote the tell-all Team of Vipers. It was like a big hit, like all those coffee table books.
Yeah.
And he was saying this whole story of Cliff Sims and the NDA reminds us just how dependent Trump's entire scam is on the use of a gag contract. I've signed a ton of NDAs.
That's amazing.
He breaks down how NDAs aren't really enforceable. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is like too good to be true.
Yeah, people who live on Twitter, that's what, my tweets will probably come back to haunt me in the future. But no, people who live on Twitter that's incredible. I'm actually looking at it right now. That's absurd. And yeah, of course, that is what they're doing right now. And literally hacking into members' websites to try to keep people, try to find out who their leakers are and who they can have break their NDAs. This is absurd. This is absurd. And I hope desperately that their donors are looking at this really hard right now, because once the money disappears, they disappear. The entire premise of this organization was to unseat Susan Collins, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, and to get Republicans to vote against Donald Trump. All of that failed. It's not a useful organization. It exists because of two reasons. The media, who need to be held accountable, notably Nicole Wallace, who had them on many times, who worked with John Weaver on the John McCain campaign. Nicole Wallace needs to be held accountable, and the Daily Beast, which hosts Rick Wilson's podcast, needs to be held accountable. I've reached out to the Daily Beast today saying, are they going to stop hosting his podcast given the credible allegations that he knew about sexual predation, and haven't heard back yet. But hopefully both those people are both that institution and Nicole Wallace are held accountable and start asking questions.
I'm so glad you said that, Ryan, because that was my last question. There was a guy on Twitter, Luke Thompson, and he was talking about the meltdown yesterday on Twitter, and he said it's worth remembering they only exist because cable bookers and the New York Times breathed them into existence and sustained them. And I retweeted it, and I said, CC Nicole Wallace. Like, she had these guys on almost every day.
Yeah, she does. And still, they had a Michael Steele, who's an advisor. Michael Steele, by the way, I've met him many times. Lovely man, but he's an advisor to the Lincoln Project, and he's talking about decency, honesty, and morality. Really? Why don't you get a mirror, Michael Steele? And I think that they need to be held accountable. Look, there's a lot of great reporters doing a lot of great work. The New Yorker, the New York Times, all those reporters did great work on John Weaver. It took me to break it. And I've gotten a lot of praise recently, and I'm very glad that people have recognized my work and the fact that I put a lot on the line to do this. And there are other reporters right now who are doing good work in the papers, at least. The people who need to be held accountable now are cable news hosts and their bookers, who are willingly putting them on and are never asking about John Weaver.
Ryan Girdusky, thank you so much for joining us. I hope to have you back on again. Hopefully about another story that you're breaking and not this one, because I know that you've done your work and you're ready to move on.
I don't think I'm getting away from this story anytime soon, but hopefully soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining the show. Ryan Girdusky, everybody, make sure you follow him on Twitter. He's got great takes, and he really did put a lot on the line for this story, and I have so much respect for him because a lot of people were trying to kill the story. That's the disturbing part of it. It's not so much that there's a lot of disturbing parts of the story, but when you figure out that a lot of these journalists, they're not just not investigating stuff, they're actively trying to kill stories like that from being told. Really, really sick. It's true what they say, a perfect smile, change your smile, change your life. I saw the change with Howie and the mailroom manager. Many people walk around all day long not smiling because they're not happy with their teeth. They're insecure. They do that soft smile where you only smile with your lips. And it's just no way to live. It really is amazing when you change your smile, how much it changes your mood and your whole entire life. So you should go to their website, watch their testimonial videos at perfectsmiles.com. Incredible transformations. You can watch Howie's on there as well. Dr. Houghton really is an artist, and he's so nice. He's the nicest guy. He'll make you feel like such a VIP. Parking is free. It's located in Nashua, New Hampshire. The staff is warm and welcoming. Everyone there will treat you like family. If you've been wanting to upgrade your look for years, contact them today and look at their video testimonials. Go to perfectsmiles.com. That's perfectsmiles.com. Change your smile, change your life. I'm going to open up the phone lines, 844-500-4242. What's your favorite story today? Is it the Lincoln Project going down? Is it Andrew Cuomo being taken down? Is it TJ Ducklow? That's a little bit inside baseball. You really have to follow this stuff to know TJ Ducklow. But hey, I don't know. Call in and share your thoughts. It's Friday. We're going to take everybody's calls. 844-500-4242. We'll be right back. This is The Grace Curley Show.
The Grace Curley Show will be right back.